Your smartphone, your electric car, your fighter jet, they all share one dirty secret. They cannot exist without 17 obscure elements that most people have never heard of. And here is the terrifying part. One country controls the supply of nearly all of them. China does not just mine rare earth minerals. China dominates the entire processing chain, from raw ore to refined oxide to finished magnet. And while Western politicians were busy arguing about trade deficits and TikTok bans, Beijing quietly built the most dangerous monopoly in human history. Monopoly, strategic weapon. This is not a story about rocks. This is a story about how the modern world handed its technological future to a single government. And that government just proved it is willing to use it. As Sun Tzu wrote centuries ago, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. What you are about to discover will change how you see every piece of technology you own. The invisible backbone. Pick up your phone, hold it in your hand. Inside that device are at least 6 different rare earth elements. Neodymium makes your speakers vibrate. Europium makes your screen glow red. Terbium gives you green pixels. Without these elements, your phone is a brick. But it goes far beyond consumer electronics. Every wind turbine uses over 2 tons of rare earth magnets. Every electric vehicle needs roughly 25 kilograms of rare earths for its motor. Every single F-35 fighter jet contains over 900 pounds of rare earth materials. The irony is staggering. The West's entire green energy transition depends on materials it does not control. The technology of tomorrow is built on minerals we gave away yesterday. And here is what makes it worse. These elements are not actually rare in the Earth's crust. They are called rare because extracting and processing them is incredibly toxic, expensive, and environmentally devastating. The West decided it was not worth the mess. China decided it was worth everything. But to understand how we got here, you need to follow the money back 40 years. Deng's master plan. In 1992, Deng Xiaoping made a statement that most Western analysts ignored. He said, "The Middle East has oil. China has rare earths." That was not a casual observation. That was a declaration of strategic intent. While the West was celebrating the end of the Cold War and slashing industrial budgets, China began a methodical, decades-long campaign to corner the rare earth market. Beijing subsidized mining operations that no private Western company could compete with. They flooded the global market with cheap rare earths, deliberately driving prices so low that American and Australian mines could not survive. Flood market, destroy competition. One by one, Western mines shut down. The last major U.S. rare earth mine, Mountain Pass in California, went bankrupt in 2015. Not because the minerals ran out, because China made it unprofitable to dig them up. They didn't need to invade anyone to win this war. They just needed patience and a calculator. If this revelation is opening your eyes, hit like and subscribe to keep exposing what they hide, because what comes next connects all the dots. And it leads us to what happened when someone finally tried to fight back. The 2010 warning. In September 2010, a Chinese fishing trawler collided with Japanese Coast Guard vessels near the disputed Senkaku Islands. It was a minor maritime incident. What happened next was not minor at all. China cut off all rare earth exports to Japan. Overnight. No warning, no negotiation. Just a complete embargo. Blackout. Japan, the world's second largest consumer of rare earths at the time, suddenly could not build hybrid cars, electronics, or defense systems. The price of some rare earth oxides skyrocketed by over 3,000% in months. The message was unmistakable. Cross us and your factories go dark. The World Trade Organization eventually ruled the embargo was illegal. China officially denied it ever happened. But every CEO in Tokyo, Seoul, and Detroit got the message loud and clear. Power is not what you control. Power is what others fear you might do with what you control. And here is the part that should terrify you. The West watched this happen, took notes, and did almost nothing to change its dependency. But why? The answer lies in the dirtiest part of this story, the pollution price. Here is the uncomfortable truth that green energy advocates never mention. Rare earth processing is one of the most environmentally destructive industries on the planet. For every ton of rare earth elements produced, the process generates roughly 2,000 tons of toxic waste. Radioactive thorium, hydrofluoric acid, heavy metals that poison groundwater for generations. 1. Toxic lakes spanning miles in Inner Mongolia. 2. Cancer villages surrounding processing plants. 3. Radioactive waste dumped in unlined ponds. 4. Rivers too contaminated for any life. The city of Baotou in Inner Mongolia has a toxic waste lake so large you can see it from space. Locals call it the worst place on Earth. Western nations looked at this environmental nightmare and made a calculated decision. Let China deal with the pollution. We will buy the finished product. Outsource pollution, import product. It was classic geopolitical hypocrisy. Lecture China about carbon emissions at climate summits while importing the toxic output of their processing plants. The West exported its dirty work and called it environmental progress. But this convenient arrangement created something far more dangerous than pollution. It created total strategic dependency. The processing trap. Most people think the problem is just mining. Dig up more rare earths and the problem is solved, right? Wrong. Mining is the easy part. The real choke point is processing. Turning raw ore into usable oxides and metals requires specialized facilities, proprietary chemical processes, and decades of accumulated expertise. You cannot build in 5 years what took 40 years to perfect. China processes roughly 60% of the world's rare earth ore. But here is the number that keeps Pentagon officials awake at night. China controls over 90% of rare earth processing. Even if you mine rare earths in Australia, Canada, or the United States, you still have to send them to China for processing. It is like growing your own wheat, but having only one bakery in the world that can turn it into bread. And that bakery belongs to your biggest strategic competitor. The Pentagon commissioned a report in 2018 that concluded the US military supply chain had, and I quote, a single point of failure dependency on a strategic competitor for materials essential to national defense. But this dependency goes even deeper than processing. Magnet monopoly. The most critical rare earth product is not an oxide or a powder. It is a magnet, specifically neodymium iron boron magnets. These are the most powerful permanent magnets known to science, and they are in everything. Electric vehicle motors, wind turbine generators, guided missile systems, hard drives, MRI machines, drone propulsion, motors, weapons, magnets, power. China manufactures over 92% of the world's rare earth magnets. Not ore, not oxide, finished magnets ready to install. In 2023, China announced export controls on gallium, germanium, and specific rare earth processing technologies. The message was crystal clear. We will decide who gets these materials and who does not. General Motors announced plans to build its own magnet factory in the US. Estimated completion, 2030 at the earliest. Tesla tried to design motors without rare earth magnets. The result? Less efficient, less powerful, more expensive. There is no substitute. There is no shortcut. There is no alternative supplier at scale. But the strategic implications go far beyond electric cars. What happens when this monopoly meets actual military conflict? Taiwan nightmare. Imagine this scenario. China moves on Taiwan. The West responds with sanctions and military support for Taipei. And within 72 hours, Beijing announces a complete embargo on all rare earth exports to NATO countries. Embargo. What happens next? The F-35 production line stops. Javelin missile production stops. Patriot missile battery repairs grind to a halt. Precision-guided munitions cannot be manufactured. The US military burns through its existing stockpile in months. Meanwhile, every electric vehicle factory in Europe shuts down. Wind turbine production ceases. Semiconductor manufacturing, already dependent on rare earths for polishing and doping, faces critical shortages. This is not science fiction. This is the scenario that the Rand Corporation modeled in 2021. Their conclusion: the United States has no viable short-term alternative supply for rare earth materials essential to national defense. As Napoleon understood centuries ago, an army marches on its stomach. A modern army marches on its supply chain. And right now, that supply chain runs through Beijing. But surely, Someone in Washington saw this coming and did something about it. The scramble. To be fair, the West is finally waking up. The US restarted the Mountain Pass mine in California under MP Materials. Australia's Lena's Rare Earths expanded its operations. The European Union launched a Critical Raw Materials Act. Japan invested heavily in deep-sea rare earth deposits. Decades of neglect are being answered with years of panic. But here is the uncomfortable math. Building a rare earth processing facility from scratch takes 7 to 15 years. Meeting environmental regulations in Western democracies adds years more. Training the specialized workforce takes another decade. 1. Mine development takes 7-15 years. 2. Environmental permits add 3-5 years. 3. Processing expertise takes decades. 4. China has a 40-year head start. China has a 40-year head start. And Beijing is not standing still. While the West scrambles to build its first processing plants, China is locking up rare earth deposits across Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia through its Belt and Road Initiative. Belt Road Lock Control. They are playing chess while the West is still setting up the board. And there is another angle to this story that almost nobody discusses: the recycling lie. Politicians love to talk about recycling rare earths from electronic waste. It sounds clean. It sounds sustainable. It sounds like a solution. It is not even close to one. Currently, less than 1% of rare earths are recycled globally. The technology exists in laboratories, but scaling it to industrial levels remains enormously expensive and energy-intensive. A typical smartphone contains less than a gram of rare earth materials spread across dozens of tiny components. Extracting them costs more than mining new ones. Recycling rare earths from electronics is like trying to unbake a cake. Deep-sea mining, decades away from commercial viability, and poses unknown ecological risks. Asteroid mining, pure fantasy for at least 50 years. Finding substitutes. Scientists have been trying for over 20 years with limited success. Neodymium magnets remain irreplaceable for their power-to-weight ratio. No substitute, no shortcut. The hard truth is this: every proposed alternative is either decades away or economically unviable. Which brings us to the most important question of all. What does this mean for you? The real game. This is not just about minerals. This is about the architecture of global power in the 21st century. Whoever controls the materials that build the future controls the future itself. Resources are the invisible hand that shapes every empire's destiny. China understood this 40 years ago. The West is understanding it now. But understanding and acting are two very different things. The rare earth monopoly is just one piece of a larger puzzle. China dominates solar panel manufacturing. China leads in battery production. China processes the majority of the world's cobalt, lithium, and graphite. This is a pattern, and once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. The 20th century was shaped by oil. The 21st century will be shaped by critical minerals. And right now, one nation holds the keys to the kingdom. The question is not if China will use this leverage, but when. As Thucydides observed about power, the strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must. The only question remaining is whether the West has the will to change its position before it is too late. Let me be blunt with you. What we have just uncovered is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented, verifiable, and happening in plain sight. For 40 years, Western governments outsourced, ignored, and dismissed the rare earth supply chain as someone else's problem. And now, every smartphone in your pocket, every missile in the arsenal, every wind turbine on the horizon depends on the goodwill of a single strategic competitor. Outsourced, ignored, vulnerable. This is the consequence of short-term thinking in a long-term game. China played the long game, and right now, they are winning. The rare earth monopoly is not just an economic issue. It is the single greatest strategic vulnerability of the Western world, and the clock is ticking. The future belongs to those who control the materials that build it. If you made it this far, comment rare leverage to prove you understand what most people still refuse to see. Every government lies. The question is, what are they lying about? The truth is out there. You just have to follow the supply chain. Subscribe if you want to keep digging.